But okay, let's get into this. We have a really important topic today, and awesome to have Karl Sterling here from Physio Change Education. Thank you for coming.
And, hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, of course. I've been wanting to talk to you for so long. I mean, I love what you do. I love your passion for helping people with Parkinson's and all kinds of things. And so, we know, as part of this Health Yeah series, we always ask in the beginning, is exercise important for Parkinson's disease? And I'm supposed to say health yeah, not hell yeah. Sorry about that. But health yeah. But I mean, that's how I feel about it. And so real quick, before we jump into everything, why don't you give us a background on you and how you got started and kind of what you're up to?
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, thanks again for having me, because you and I have been communicating for actually some years now.
Yeah.
Now we finally get to talk, so this is cool. And one of these days I'm going to get to Seattle. But
in the summer.
yeah. So I'll try to give you the quick 1-minute rundown. I did 35, actually more than that, years as a drummer for a living.
Mm-hmm.
I never actually really wanted to, but that's besides the point. I'm good at it. I'm not great, but I'm very good. It just came natural. So my parents are musicians and all that stuff. But anyways, towards the end, the last few years, I was so burned out, and I knew I didn't want to do that forever for a living. But I had gained a ton of weight, like 300 pounds. I'm 6'2", so 300 is bad. I was very unhealthy. I got a health scare from my doctor, and I was so afraid that I decided to call a trainer I knew right from the parking lot when I went out. So I started getting trained the next day, and this is going back about 10 years.
Okay.
And so fast forward 6 months later, I'm weighing in like 260, 265. A year later, I'm like 230 something. I'm feeling really, really good, and I decided I think I want to help people feel better like I feel. So I did fast forward again a few months, did NASM, got their CPT, and then I started training for a while and decided, I need to know more. So I went back to school at Syracuse University. I live in Syracuse, New York. I went back for nutrition. They ended up hiring me to work there as a trainer on a part-time basis, but it's kind of like full-time hours. I had a ton of clients. It was the best way to get in front of bodies every day, just show people. So I pretty much lived on the campus all day. And that is where one of my professors came to me about 7.5 years ago, and he knew I was a trainer. He said, "Will you please train me?" I said, "Yeah, so let's talk about some things." And he says, "Well, I have Parkinson's disease." I was like, "Oh." I mean, I didn't say it like that to him, but in my head, I'm like, "Oh, what do I do?" So I said yes to him. I knew I could say yes because it just so happened at the same time, my son was at Hershey Penn State doing an MD PhD program. And he was well into his PhD research, which happens to be Parkinson's related. So I get home that night, I call Nick, I'm like, "Dude, we have a situation." Me in the right direction, because I need to know what to do and what not to do, because I know nothing about this population, even though I've been Googling all day till I could talk to you. That was the beginning.
Okay.
And you know what? The direction he pointed me and the people I got to meet helped me so much that actually, even though I feel really badly that my client, Jerry, who's still my client, I only have one client now. I don't do one-on-ones anymore, except for Jerry, but I work with him, and he's doing fantastic. And I found it and still find it to be saddening that they have the disease, but fascinating what we can do to help them. It's been a really great, interesting, exciting journey, especially when we see how much we can do to help them that isn't like common knowledge yet.
It's about 2 weeks ago, we interviewed a very similar story where a personal trainer, she was approached. And for this case, the person happened to be an adaptive athlete. And she was approached in the same manner. This person, wanted to row and she had never trained anybody who was paralyzed before. And she said yes, just like you said yes. So it's kind of a great theme that we consistently see, where if more personal trainers are open to other patient populations, right, then things start getting really interesting and we start helping more people. So, so I love that story. You had mentioned a little bit about what you start to see. And so why don't you tell us, actually, just for anybody who's tuning in, we have people, they're kind of in a caretaker role or newly diagnosed. Let's just talk about what is Parkinson's disease, okay? And what you see in terms of how it impacts people in their body, and their family, and their life.
Okay, yeah, this is a really good question. So if you look up the clinical definition, it's a progressive degeneration of the central nervous system. Well, that's really, really broad. So technically what's really going on is in the very mid-brain area, there's the basal ganglia part of the brain, and inside that is the substantia nigra. It's a little butterfly-shaped place, and it's actually a very ancient primal movement center of the brain. Cerebellum helps us move too, but the thing that's particularly important about the substantia nigra is that it's also a really big dopamine production center. But in Parkinson's, what's happening is the brain cells in the substantia nigra are dying. And so the more of them that die, the less dopamine is produced. And dopamine, for those who don't know, is a neurotransmitter. So, for example, if you've ever watched somebody with Parkinson's who, for example, maybe they, this is me, I'm on my legs, right? I have Parkinson's, so I want to get started. And I'm like, my head knows I want to go. My brain, I consciously know I want to move, but my feet just won't go. And then, boom, I finally go. That's lack of neurotransmitter for the brain to tell the body what to do. So, I mean, there are ways that we work with that. There are dopamine replacement medications, all the kind of stuff. I mean, that's the neurology part. We do our stuff too to help them to get started or not freeze or not fall. But the more that those brain cells shut down, the more that movement is affected. The number one cause of, not to be like scaring anybody, but I could rattle off statistics all day, but when it comes right down to it, it's very important to know that the number one cause of death in the Parkinson's population are complications from a fall, not necessarily the fall. It could be they fell down, got a concussion, had to go to the hospital, got pneumonia, and died. Because number two cause of death in the population is complications from breathing issues. There's a whole breathing parameters with lack of dopamine and of the ventilatory parameters change, so then breathing tends to get more shallow. So that's why exercise is so good. Cardio, we'll talk about that later. So how does it affect people? So we know what it is now. We know that it's a degeneration of the central nervous system. We know the part of the brain that's dying. We know we have a lack of dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter. So this will affect our movement. Some of the motor symptoms, there are 4 classic motor symptoms. Tremor. Not everyone gets everything though, right? Not everyone gets a tremor. Some people never get one, but it is common. Rigidity, which is just being really stiff. Bradykinesia is just being slow, where like your gait will change, be a little slower and maybe shuffly feet or asymmetrical gait pattern. And the last one, which is actually the most severe, is postural instability. That's responsible for far more falling than the first 3 I listed combined. The tremor is the least debilitating, but it looks the worst.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, right, especially as we see an aging population just start to get different side effects of growing older, right? Like we'll hear from people a lot of times that they didn't know that they had Parkinson's until they had a fall, right? And then they have all these struggles to get into a doctor and have to wait months and months and months before they can actually see, a professional. So how do you know, what is that moment where you're like, I need to go see my doctor. This is not normal. This is not a normal aging process, and that fall is more than a fall. Like, what are the triggers that you think people should watch for?
Okay, so first of all, I'm really glad you asked that question because
That's right.
Yeah, no. So I have to show you a book right now.
Show us books all day. We're going to put together a reading list after this.
I have many books for you. I met this author. He's at the University of, where is he? UCLA. His name is Dr. James Bredesen. I'm sorry, Dale Bredesen. He's a neurologist. He's wrote this really great book called The End of Alzheimer's. Now, there's a reason I'm showing you an Alzheimer's book. So Dale Bredesen, everybody must read this. I have, for the books I really like, I've got the Audible version so I can listen, and these I can mark them all up inside with highlights. So, first of all, this is not going to be answering your question right away, but we'll get there. Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, according to Bredesen and plenty of other research, will live right here first for 10 to 20 years before you manifest any symptom at all, period. Now, a symptom doesn't have to be falling or tremor. Let's say you just see one arm doesn't swing as well anymore, and the person with Parkinson's isn't going to probably notice, but perhaps the caregiver, if they notice that their husband or their wife, the arms aren't swinging the same way, especially if it's one side that's not swinging, that's something to monitor and think about, because that's one of the first earliest signs. Actually, before that, though, new research just came out from Dr. Tony Lang in Toronto Western Hospital, University of Toronto, saying that if you are thrashing around in your sleep, acting out your dreams, and I'm saying beyond restless leg syndrome, but that also could be a symptom. If you're really acting out your dreams, that usually comes before losing arm swing. If you're acting out your dreams, your partner will know if you have one with you in the bed, and they might be getting hit. So you don't really want that, right? So that is the earliest sign that we know of. They could be 20 years away from a tremor, but they still might have the disease. That's coming right from Toronto Western. Another thing is a diminished sense of smell. Okay, so one of the first signs of any kind of movement disorder, especially Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, and I'm sure some others like multiple system atrophy, and I'm not sure what else, but Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, if you notice, and the person with the issue probably won't notice as soon as somebody else, or as soon as somebody else might notice, hey, you didn't smell the burning toast in the kitchen or something? Oh, no. Well, you always used to. Well, I didn't smell it. Well, that's a sign. Now, we really would want to go to the doctor at one of these points. But the problem is, and I say this with all due respect to the medical community, there are a number of factors to deal with. First of all, you're a general practitioner. They might even take a tremor that is Parkinson's and say, oh, no, it's just an essential tremor. Don't worry. You look fine otherwise. It could be Parkinson's. It could be you have no motor symptom, but you are thrashing around a bed and you can't smell as well and your arms aren't swinging the way they used to. And they'll just say, oh, it's part of the aging process. But you know something's not right, and it's more than just aging. We want them to take us seriously so that they refer you to somebody, and maybe if your insurance will cover it, get a DAT scan, DAT scan. It's like an MRI, but you have to drink the magic green fluid and wait 3 hours. Then you'll know. I mean, well, it's not a guarantee, but at least you'll know if the substantia nigra is lighting up the way it's supposed to. And it doesn't. It doesn't mean it's Parkinson's, but it's one of three things, or two other things that it could be. But I mean, certainly in motor symptoms, if somebody starts falling, I have a lady I started working with a couple of years ago. We worked for about a year together. She had no tremor. She's really fast. She's too fast. She's 85, 86 now. No rigidity, no tremor, fast, has Parkinson's. Postural instability has caused her, 2 years ago, 17 falls in a 1 year time period. I happen to know she fell down last fall and hit the back of her head. The backwards falls are that's bad. So start looking for those early symptoms, and try to get the doctor to take you seriously.
And be your own advocate, basically. It's like you have to go in there. Amongst multiple health conditions, right? In terms of being your own advocate.
It's so important, and I know people who've taken Jerry, my first and now my only client with Parkinson's. He was diagnosed in 6 months. Boom, he had a little tiny finger tap. and they knew, and that they were right. I know my friend Ian Frizzell in Northern England. I've been to England a lot and taught, and he's come to a few workshops, and it took him, I think it was 16 years to get diagnosed.
Wow.
I hear all kinds of stories because doctors aren't listening, and I again, we need our doctors. This is not to say anything bad about it, but we want them to listen. So try to find one that is recommended who will listen and take you seriously. That's all I can advise in that area.
So now you work on a day-to-day, like constant 24/7 basis of trying to figure out or nailing and teaching exercise for Parkinson's. And if you can let's get in a little bit into the types of exercises that you do, why they're important. And, we're all told to exercise more. Exercise, exercise, exercise. Fights preventable disease, prevents the progression of the disease. We know these things, right? But it's vital for Parkinson's disease and the progression. And maybe you can get into that. That was a lot of requests there, but like jump into that.
Okay, I'm happy too. I could talk for days about this. I just want to put something up here. It's what I call a spectrum, and over here is, I'll put FL is functional life, and then there's med. Okay, so I don't know if you can see this or not, but on the left, we have, let's call this medication, physical therapy, education, personal training, whatever, to help the person with the problem, right? Over there, FL is functional life. You'll notice there's a big gap between there. Well, that's because there's a big gap between there and real life. Or you, people like you, like me, we're trying to go into the middle here. We want to fill this and complement. We want to complement these things. We're not here to replace them. We're here to carry over where they stopped for whatever reason, money, insurance, whatever, and then fill this gap so they do live a better functional life. So my approach is a little different than your average normal trainer, because in my teaching history, one of the things I taught a lot was the Barefoot Training Specialist Level 1 and 2 course for the Evidence-Based Fitness Academy. Founder of that is a friend and one of my main mentors, like top 2 mentors, Dr. Emily Splickles. So besides the foot structure, which I find is fascinating, I like to study feet because they're the foundation for our movement. So we want to do good foot posture and all that stuff. But what else is really cool is like the first thing that I want to do is wake up the nervous system and the brain. And like that is the very first thing we're doing. So it doesn't matter if it's a person in a wheelchair, because we've had lots of people in wheelchairs, and we'll get their shoes and socks off. And maybe they can stand with assistance. A lot of times we've had people who can. But let's say you're a person who can move and walk. Just the mere act of taking off the bare feet. So I'm going to go into another book now. Emily talks about this, and then there's this book called Harvard's professor Dr. John Rady wrote a book called Go Wild. Now he talks about a lot of nutrition stuff in here. But he also talks about the benefits of being in nature, but also the benefits of being barefoot. Because over the years, over the decades, when we wear shoes and socks, and some people always wear shoes and socks, like they never go barefoot. And so what happens is, well, first of all, we have to know that the plantar skin on the bottom of the feet is the most highly densely populated with sensory nerve endings, mechanoreceptors, sensory receptors. And as we wear shoes and socks over the decades, they go to sleep. They don't die. They shut down. We want to wake them up. So if you just take off shoes and socks and be in, a safe environment with no glass or anything, you're going to cut yourself. Maybe your house, or if there's an area at the gym, or a lot of these boutique gyms or whatever, they allow barefoot. Try to get moving barefoot. But of course, you're not going to go outside and go to the grocery store and all that barefoot. So Dr. Emily, sorry, I have to go back. As we go barefoot, those nerve endings start to wake up. The ones that went dormant from shoes and socks will start to wake up. So now we have more sensory input. We have that shoots a message through his peripheral and central nervous system right to the brain, probably the cerebellum. We're not really sure, and it doesn't really matter. You wake up the nervous system and the brain, and it's like instant, because that's what happens when you wake up those nerves. And the more you go barefoot, the more you wake them up. So we have actually a yoga mat of the same thing as this textured insole here. If you can see that. This is a creation of Dr. Emily's Naboso technology. Oh, so now you can take these, put them in your shoes, and a lot of R&D, research and development, went into these, and the spacing of these and the depth of these. And I was with her when she was going through R&D, and a lot of prototypes came out. It's like, nope, not this one. Nope, not this one. And a few of them. And all of a sudden, this one is making the difference.
Okay.
So I've been all over the world with these, and we'll put them in people's shoes, not telling them anything that we just told you. Like, we're not saying, oh, you're going to move better and all that, because we don't want them to think ahead, like, and expect anything. We also have the neuro version of it, which the lighting's not real good here, but it's a pointier surface.
Okay.
These little bumps are like pyramids without the top cut off.
Now, do you recommend these for people who, is it, only Parkinson's, or just anybody can wear them, or Alzheimer's, they're starting to struggle? At what point do you suggest wearing these?
I wear mine all day, every day.
Okay.
Now, if it's, we use them with athletes, like the yoga mat of the same textures. For our martial arts for Parkinson's classes, we do, it's entry-level martial arts, but a lot of good things about it we can talk about in a while. But we have a neuro version of the yoga mat she does, and she is the regular version. We use the neuro version in the classes, and they come in on the walk. We have a bunch of them lined up in a row, just kind of wake up the nervous system. To answer your question, we've used them with athletes. I don't work with athletes. I don't really know how to, but the people I know who do, when we use these with athletes, that they just wear them for a few minutes, and sometimes they just go barefoot for a few minutes. There is research out there that shows that barefoot before playing volleyball or basketball or running a marathon or triathlon or whatever, these athletes, if they can get like a 0.5% faster, sometimes it's enough to, maybe they come in second place, first place. You know what I mean?
I love so I talk about bare feet all the time, and we see this. I think we could spend a whole session on barefoot fitness.
Oh, yeah.
But we even see this. We see this in the ER. In the ICU. We see it when cancer patients are cycling our device. We see it all across the board. If we can get people to cycle with bare feet, at first they're a little like, oh, my foot gets cramped. We need to make that foot stronger, right? So I could talk about feet all day long, and hands too, right? So you get a lot into the hand fitness.
It's next on my list.
There we go.
So now we've woken up the feet. Guess what? The second most densely populated with small nerve endings is your hand. Now, I happen to like the Hyperice Hypersphere, made by Hyperice is the company. It's a vibrating ball. I don't know if you can hear it.
I can hear it, yeah.
You can see it vibrating.
Okay.
So I've had people, I remember I was at there were like 500 people at this symposium. I was a keynote speaker in Mexico City last September. And, I always have a couple of these with me when I travel. So I go up to this gentleman, and I like to go talk to people before, and I speak Spanish fairly well. So, hola, ¿cómo está? Blah, blah, blah. And he talk about the tremor. I said, here, because he's like this, both. Do you mind just hold this for like 5 minutes, and I'll be back. So what's really cool is I go back 5 minutes later. He's already given the ball to somebody else with tremors, and his hands are almost perfectly still.
Amazing.
Now, this is temporary, of course.
Yeah.
But, my clients they all buy these because they can get them off my site. But anyways, they buy them because, like, let's say they want to go out to dinner and they're afraid of this, and dumping something. or they need to button a shirt in the morning or do a zipper or something with makeup or hair. So the fine motor skills, nothing works for everybody all the time, but this has worked so well to help to diminish tremors. Sometimes you'll see like dystonia where they're moving a lot, or we had a guy with abdominal dystonia where the stomach kept popping out, so we put the ball here. About 5 minutes. This was out in Denver about a year ago. Gone. I mean, temporarily gone. It could be gone 10 minutes or 3 hours. But the whole idea is we want to have them a bunch of things. The main goal is let's improve the overall quality of life. And if that means you're able to write a check, it means you're able to eat dinner and eat the dinner without burning yourself or spilling something on yourself, that is a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
And so we can use the ball for that. We in the workouts, and now people buy these insoles from me. I have like a stockpile of them, and they put them in their shoes, and they notice they feel safer, more secure, more balanced. Their stride length usually gets better. Their stride symmetry gets better. This is just automatic most of the time, not all the time, most of the time. Their arm swing, I don't even say anything, and usually the arms start to swing better. If people go to the top site here, my handwriting is absolutely horrible, but it's parkinsonregeneration.com. I have a Naboso tab. On that tab, first page is information about what is Naboso, these insoles. Drop down has videos. There are 20 videos right now. If you go there and look at the before, which before is like side view, treadmill, normal footwear. There's a description by everyone, so they wouldn't be confused on what they're seeing. On the right side is immediately after putting the insoles. We have them walking outside. We'll see the movement is improving so much. It's absolutely amazing.
Absolutely. So
yeah.
Like now, after you've woken up the central nervous system by focusing on the feet and the hands, and then start to get into additional just daily exercise or exercises you're doing in the gym and training people to do, like what's the next phase?
Very good. I'm going to turn this off. Okay, so I talked for a long time about that, but it's because it's so important. There are 3 main areas that I look at. Right now, I can only think of 2.
Yeah, maybe the third one will pop up.
Maybe they'll come to me. Wake up the nervous system and brain. That's one. Well, actually, the 2 main categories are retraining the brain, because we know. Okay, another book. Here we go. There are 2 that I really like by two different authors. The Brain That Changes Itself. Norman Doidge. If you can see his name, there it is. He's out of Toronto. He has another one too, which is an extension. It has the best Parkinson's chapter and the best Alzheimer's chapters I've ever read in my life.
Okay.
The Brain's Way of Healing Itself, or Healing. Yeah, it's also a really good sequel. The other book that talks about this, retraining the brain, is User's Guide to the Brain by John Rady, again, the same one who wrote Go Wild. While we're at it, let's just finish up the Rady stuff. There's another one he wrote called Spark. We'll talk about this when we get talking about cardio. Okay, so the second big thing is, and it may not be in order of this, but the second big thing we want to do is, we know that as we go through life, at any given point in time, we can learn to do new things. It's not like 100 years ago where they thought at the age of 5 you were done growing your brain. Our brain can regenerate itself. It can regenerate, well, not every part all the time, but it can learn to do new things because of neuroplasticity, right? So that means it's moldable. So, for example, I've been learning, well, let's go back. You learn how to ride a bicycle. You're not good the first day, right? You might have fallen down. Probably did, if I did. I mean, and then a couple weeks later, though, because you keep doing it, what's happened is these synapses, like if these are neurons and these are neurons, there's electrical synapses happen, and then the more they fire together, they eventually, boom, they wire together, and so on and so forth. So millions of them. You get your bicycle riding neural firing pattern, and the more you fire that, so the more you ride, the better you get. So what we know is that with falls being #1 cause of death for complications with fall, we want to avoid falling, because statistically, once they fall, they're 3 times more likely to fall, right? So we concentrate on a lot of things like focused movement. It could be as simple as just walking and doing some kind of cognitive exercise. Like Dr. Lisa Morituri has done a lot of research on this. She's really cool. She's down at Stony Brook in Long Island. She's a neurologist. We have different things we can do, like, maybe we're saying the alphabet, or yesterday at a class, we had a group. And I said, okay, you name a state, next person name the capital, next person spell it. Spell it backwards. And then we keep going, but meanwhile, they're throwing like 2 rights and a left, right? 2 rights and a left. 2 rights and a left. And then we switch it up. Or we had them dribbling a basketball while they're walking, and doing some other thing like counting backwards from 247 by 6s, or, I mean, it depends. Like, we have to do what they can, not what they can't. Sometimes the really difficult counting things and math equations aren't going to work, or long words, spelling them forwards or backwards won't work.
Yeah.
We have that's called direct recall type of training, where you're recalling, okay, capital of Washington is Olympus, right?
Olympia. Close enough.
Mount Olympus?
Olympia.
Olympia. Ah, darn it. Okay.
See, you need to come to Seattle.
I was just
We'll take you to Olympia.
I was testing you. No, so we'll, spell it forward, backward, alphabet, math, and all that. Then that's like a direct recall. We could be doing spatial awareness. Okay, so now maybe if we do what they can, not what they can't. We have people like Jerry who can jump single leg, sideways, or zigzag through an agility ladder. And maybe I'm throwing a ball back and forth, and he is telling me how to get from wherever we are to his favorite restaurant, let's say, which happens to be on the other side of town. So a lot of turns. So I want him to actually be doing this passing of the ball, jumping sideways, or however we do. And then tell me, okay, I get out, I go down Erie Boulevard, I turn left on Thompson Road, I turn right on Burnett. And because your brain actually fires in a different way when you're doing spatial versus capitals and math and all that. It's called, spatial. Then we have direct recalls. So we could have, I don't have them with me here, but I've got like mitts, right? I'm wearing mitts and they've got gloves. So I've got R for right on my right, L for left. I got a yellow piece of rock tape here and a green one here. Like, okay, I cue every punch. Right, left, yellow, green. Or do opposite. Whatever I say, you do the opposite. Or maybe all lefts are odd numbers. So a jab is 1, hook is 3, uppercut is 5. All rights are even, 2, 4, 6. So the challenge with that is, like, I actually have to know what I'm doing, and I screw up all the time. So it's actually good for both of us. We try to do as much as we can in the way of activating the vestibular system, and that's like just turning your head and moving the eyes. This book is really, really cool. It's called The Infinity Walk. Dr. Perry Nixon told me about it. For example, we could set up a cone here, and then another one over here. They're walking a figure 8 around this set of cones while their head looks at that one.
Okay.
They never break contact. So as they turn, their eyes are tracking, their head's moving. So we have visual activation, vestibular activation during a focus movement, and maybe we have them do some kind of cognitive exercise as well. The nice thing is that you can get really creative with this kind of stuff. Like, you can get creative with the cognitive training. There's stuff that people come up with and movements they come up with at workshops. Like, okay, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to teach it too, because it's so cool what they'll come up with.
I had not heard the connection to the vestibular, like vestibular exercises while doing it. So that's interesting. That's not something I had seen anybody else really focus on.
Yeah, there's another thing we do too that actually I have to give credit where credit's due. Do Z Health.
Okay.
Z Health has some super amazing stuff. For example, if you take someone, we'll do what we call the pencil push-up test. So I'll take like a pen, or I'll use a drumstick for now because I'm a drummer, right? So I could be, what I'm actually looking to do here is keep the drumstick one. So as I'll try to line it up here. So as I bring this in towards me, now I'd be doing this for the person. I want to see and check how their eyes track. When can they not make it be one anymore? And does one eye come in better than the other? Then what we do.
Let me look at my pen here. Okay, so I had to do that.
So if I was the trainer or the physio or whatever, I'd be watching you as I do it to you, and I'd be looking to see your right eye, your left eye. How are they tracking? We can do a lot of other tracking movements too. We can, be, up, down, sideways, but we don't, I could talk for days about this. But then what we'll do is have them like cover an eye. Oh, I'll use this one because I don't see out of the other one. Then we'll look at this, and we just go down that thing as fast as we can.
Okay.
All right. So, Q, N, D, M, E, K. We don't have to say it out loud. I'd rather have them go top to bottom, focusing for just a millisecond here, then back and forth, and go down like top to bottom 3 times.
Okay.
Then do this again.
Okay.
And what you'll almost always see is, and they actually notice the difference too, is that the eye that wasn't tracking as well tracks better. Then what happened to me after this was done to me a couple of years ago, and my friend Deanna Cordoba in DC, she's so awesome. She owns a gym. I was teaching there. She did it to me. I come back and I'm playing catch with Jerry, and I didn't miss the ball because I'm always missing the ball because this eye doesn't see, and I have bad depth perception with things, right? So he's like, "Dude, what's up, man? Like you caught the ball every time. You never do that."
Yeah.
And there was a carryover for days from just doing that reset. And even though this eye, I can see light and dark, but I just moved the eye. Even though I couldn't see the letters at all, it still helped so that when it came at me, I could get it. Well, this is the feedback we get from people when we do this in the group class too, is they really like it. Oh my God, there's so much to talk about, but it's
well,
really
what you've explained right there scares me for future generations who are today, where we're so buried in our phone and our eyes aren't tracking anywhere, and like all these small motion movements, right? And then even today, a lot of personal trainers and fitness in general is focused on these large movements and these huge things. And sometimes, it's about helping somebody get, being able to take their shirt off, like you're saying, button their shirt, do their tie, put their own makeup on, but I get a little nervous. I call it T-Rex zones, where we're living here, right? And our phone and our car and keyboards, and our eyes are buried on these screens. And so these are things for all of us to practice all the time.
Text neck.
Yes.
I saw a post the other day. I don't know who did it, but text neck is so important. It's so appropriate, and it's really, I actually have it, and I try to remind myself to not have it. So we're barely scratching the surface. But for example, so we go back to wake up the feet, wake up the hands, wake up the nervous system, wake up the brain. Do cognitive training during focused movement. Do vestibular activation. If I'm going to pass the ball as they're walking through an agility ladder, I'm running around them because I want the head turning. I want this. I want the eyes tracking. So we want the deeper brain stimulation, according to Dr. Marcus Ernst at Colorado Springs Brain Clinic, and the guy is amazing. He talks about the deeper brain stimulation without using machines like electrodes and all that would be the simultaneous focus movement, vestibular activation, visual activation, and did I say cognitive? No.
No.
So thinking, eyes tracking, head moving, and focused movement.
So let's talk, because I want to get into the importance of cardio. And like we're working right now where we really want to do a study on upper body because we can get people's heart rate going really fast, quickly, right? And so the important role that cardio plays in this entire thing, we have our small movements, but on the cardio side.
Yes.
And the quicker we can get the role of vigorous exercise, right?
Yeah.
And why it's so important in preventing the progression of the disease.
Okay, before that, I'm just going to mention one thing.
Okay.
I've never found a bad Parkinson's program. I want to put that out there.
Yeah.
What I put mine together for is to try to to put together what I think or hope is the most comprehensive and complete.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know if it is, but it's the best I can make it at the moment at any given time, and it's always growing. When I acknowledge a couple people, I want to acknowledge Power Moves, Tucson, Arizona, because I mean, there are things I wish they did, but you know what? They do some really good stuff. I want everyone to buy my stuff and come and see me and all that.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're in Arizona, go to Power Moves because it's very good. Now they talk about something that is very important, big movements.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know we have this flex forward posture usually with Parkinson's. I have it anyway, so I'm always trying to. So if we're doing some of these, big movements. Mm-hmm. Activating the posterior chain, maybe trying to release some of the anterior chain. That is very important. There's so many big moves we can do. I'm going to plug something. My membership site, $15 a month or $150 per year, physiochangeeducation.com. You can join for a month and then cancel. We haven't had hardly any cancellations. I'm very happy with almost 300 people now. So, but our goal is not just Parkinson's. This is just everyone.
Yeah. And
we keep, because everything we do, just to clarify, it has to do with everyone, not just Parkinson's.
Yeah.
Our general population has a forward posture. So big moves is important. Rock Steady Boxing, another really good program. I mean, we have had so many people come to our workshops from there, and when they leave, they're like, wow, we can make our program better. Mm-hmm. But we have people come in who are highly trained, There's no prerequisite to train for them. You don't have to have movement knowledge, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, there are pros and cons to everything, but they're really good programs. But what I like about Rock Steady, for example, is something we try to emulate in our own ways, and that comes right around to cardio. Mm-hmm. Okay, so when you think about cardio, I think the best reasons for cardio, the top two reasons I could think of is as you move less, your cardiovascular conditioning will probably diminish. Mm-hmm. And if breathing issues are number 2 cause of death, we would love to have our lungs working well and our cardiovascular working well. So for everybody, there's an advantage. But another thing that's a real game changer is there's a lot of research on this, is when you elevate the heart rate, and the more vigorous, the better. Mm-hmm. And according to Dr. Moratorius, at Stony Brook, at least 20 minutes, but 30 would be better. Mm-hmm. You can take little breaks here and there, but the more you can elevate the heart rate to 70, 80%, like we were talking off camera earlier.
We're trying to get you to 80. We're at a minimum.
Then what happens is the elevated heart rate causes the brain to create this growth hormone. It's a protein. It's called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Okay. BDNF. I was going to write it down. I don't know where my marker went. BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. John Rady talks about it in this book called Spark. Now, he talks about it relative to high school kids in Naperville School District, Illinois, and how high their grades are and how their obesity rate's the lowest in the country. But but they get BDNF going in their heads too. But for all of us, when we create BDNF via elevated heart rate, which is the number 1 way to do it, by far, this neurotrophic factor circulates in the brain. It helps to slow the progression of dying brain cells. And according to Dr. Wendy Suzuki at New York University, who I just spoke with yesterday, and we're going to hopefully do some research together. She did an interview for my YouTube series. She talks about how BDNF helps to give birth to new brain cells, especially in people with, well, especially in the olfactory bulb area, which is sense of smell, and the hippocampus, which is memory and future planning. So Maria Shriver's study that came out 2 years ago of people with early onset Alzheimer's who did cardio every day for, I don't know how long the study went, but most of them improved their memory. And we would speculate because BDNF helped to give birth to new brain cells, right? So very cool. But if we don't have a disease, and hopefully we don't, well, let's say we're genetically predispositioned to getting one, it's going to help delay the onset. Maybe it will help to avoid it altogether, but at least help delay onset. So, as I say in Mexico and Spain, cardio todos los días, every single day. No, take a day off if you have to, but do it a lot. Do it 20, 30 minutes a day. And whatever study you do, I want to know the results because.
Well, I'll tell you, I think, so we're working on this right now. We're consistently hearing that getting the heart rate to that 70 to 80% max volume rate is really hard. It's hard for people, with health conditions. And if we can do it faster, here we're trying, and do this at a university where if we can get it up faster and we can do it in shorter bursts of activity, right, then things start getting really interesting. And I tell people, even if they don't have an XE, taking your arms to the side and just sitting here and doing this, right, drives your heart rate up really fast. I show people this because I'm like, look at my heart, right? Why rock? So I mean, it's, I can't talk, but why boxing is so great is like getting these arms going. And so I will keep you posted. And if and I really want to make this happen because there's all kinds of studies on cycling, right, with Parkinson's disease. It's one of our number one reasons that people come to us. So I could go off on that all day.
Oh, I love it. Cycling and swimming is really good too. Yeah. But I'll tell you, I just have to show you something ridiculous. You take a towel and just wrap the towel like this.
Yeah.
We do that. And then in the workshops, we'll do 1 minute of, somebody always has an excuse. Well, I can't do cardio because.
Yes.
Okay, well, can you sit on the edge of your chair? Okay, can you do this? Arm swings, right?
Yeah, something.
Just do 1 minute, take a minute off, and do it a few times. I mean, people are sweating, they're laughing, their heart rate is up. And so cardio is possible to do in many different ways, and it's very important.
One of the reasons I like, I wear an Apple Watch, and I tell people all the time, I do these little tiny movements sometimes just out of fascination, like carrying in the groceries, right? I'll look down and I'm like, 170? What the heck just happened? Really. At 170 from doing the groceries. Real quick, if you can, I know for people who are interested in becoming, a trainer for Parkinson's, you have this bag of tricks kind of ready to go. How do people find you? What should people what should they consider? And, obviously they can get in touch with you, but what would you tell people who are thinking about, hey, I want to start working with Alzheimer's. I want to start working with Parkinson's. I want to start working in this area.
Good question. Thank you. Can I mention one other thing before I answer that?
Sure.
We do so many things with these people. We do a lot of traditional balance stuff. We don't do a lot of traditional strength training, though. If we're going to do anything, it's going to be suspension training, body weight training. Yep. We really want to retrain the brain, but we also want to get them on the floor because so many people are afraid of the floor. And what if they fall down? So we teach, and so far, where's wood? Here it is, knock on wood, 100% success. We'll have somebody at every single workshop or symposium or more than one person who can't. We have a thing I do. It's the only original idea I ever had in my life, and it's this. Is Karl's take me through your day assessment. They'll say, okay, so Michelle, you wake up in the morning, you have Parkinson's, you open your eyes, what's your first challenge? And it's not uncommon to have somebody say rolling over in bed. I can't get out of bed, I can't roll over. Well, darn it, we're going to help you. First, we'll get you on the floor. The dogs are... Sorry.
FedEx, UPS.
It's probably the UPS truck. It's okay, puppies. Sorry. I meant to mention that could happen. So if we get them on the floor, Hey, Zoe, relax.
I'm surprised my dogs aren't responding. They're like at this bark fest. But,
Excuse me one second. Hey,
okay.
come here. Yeah, it's just the UPS guy. So we get them on the floor. We teach them to roll, and then we actually teach them to get from a face down position up onto all fours, and then crawl. Crawl backward, crawl to an object, and teach them a strategic way of getting up with a chair or something. Or sometimes, what if they can't get up? Well, there's nothing there. Well, we'll teach them how to get up with no prop. And now, sometimes we have problems, but if we do it often enough and we really work it, we can usually have them get up just by positioning of the knee and the leg and leaning. And so, I mean, it's so important to, just, we need to look out for them, basically, as I'm really sorry.
Maybe you can send me you have some videos on your website that I'll add when I do a blog post on this, and of getting on the floor and rolling over, and it's some wonderful training. And this always reminds me of these small, fine motor skills that really change people's lives, right? And whether it's Parkinson's, osteoporosis, arthritis, like we see all kinds of things, right? When we can make small changes, then we can make huge impact in day-to-day living. So I appreciate these. We'll have to do this again for sure. One thing I just kind of wanted to wrap up with is your suggestions for a caretaker. There's you who have, the condition, but the caretaker, whether you're far, you're close, you're in there on a day-to-day life, what are some tips for the caretakers?
Okay, this is perfect because I wanted to segue on the last thing, which actually goes right into caregiver, and it has to do with this. We've had this happen so many places around the world where somebody comes in and they regain an ability that they had lost. Like, we've had people actually not be able to roll over, and then they can. And they might come in like this. They're like dragged in by the spouse or caregiver, and they don't want to, he can't teach me anything, this tough American, big shot American guy, whatever. Well, then they realize I care about them. They realize that we can help, and I want so desperately to help, because I know that when they, no, hey, no, it's all cool. Come here, puppy. It's just UPS. And he's leaving now. Okay, great. So when they regain, like this one lady, a friend of mine in Mexico, she rolled over, and I didn't know why she was crying, but I found out that night when she commented on something, that it's because it's the first time she rolled over by herself in 5 years.
Wow, 5 years. Wow.
And so she's only 43 at the time. She was diagnosed when she was 28. But the thing is that the best part, this is the best part, this is where caregivers come in, is she went from feeling defeated and hopeless. That moment when she kept rolling and we couldn't stop her, she became a fighter. And I tell you, we text probably every other day now. She is unstoppable. She's back to running because she got the insoles and all that. So this can literally, like, this here, when you regain something, you get something you, I'm so sorry.
It's fine. It's fine.
Then what happens is, not only is she feeling good, the caregiver gets a break. Right? So Ernesto's not pulling and pushing her in bed anymore, and she's off and doing things. She's independent. She's back to work now too. We've had several people who go back to work, and now their household income is higher, and they were struggling before. My advice is, for the person you're with who you're caring for, try to get them to do something. Go to somewhere. Go to a rock steady. If we're in your area, come see us. If you want to join our website and get on, it's not the same, but it's there. If you have the discipline to work out with videos, work along with us and do it yourself. But it's usually better if it's in a situation where there's a group, because sometimes socially they have withdrawn. So now they come in and they make friends. Get your person to do something at a Parkinson's class wherever you are, because it's going to change, even if it's just something super simple. It could even be just, I said there's no bad Parkinson's classes, because there really aren't. As long as you're doing something, it's better than nothing. Even the most basic thing, do it. And you're going to probably realize some kind of a relief. And when this shifts, your life as a caregiver will shift as well, because now your person you're with probably has a little bit more hope, positive attitude, and things are going to change.
Yeah.
Do something. Get them somewhere.
Absolutely.
Drag them in.
We see, I see a lot of our customers will say that they have, you know, they'll do like dancing for yoga as a couple, or yoga for as a couple, or, you know, chair yoga, all kinds of things, but where the caretaker will get involved in it and actually sees benefits in their own life, you know, so it's like a nice, you know, thing to do.
I'm glad you said it. I forget so many things because there's so much to say. In our martial arts for Parkinson's classes, caregivers are almost always there, and many times they come in, they jump in, they get involved. So we're part of this thing that we're doing. We're going to launch a licensing thing next month, and it's the martial arts for Parkinson's, and it's kind of like you buy a license like Rocksteady or whatever, and then we train you. We offer training every week to the coaches so that they can teach our concepts in their facility. What I like about that better than the 2-day workshop is 2-day workshops are great. They come in, they learn a lot, they get excited, they go home, and they don't do much. In this, they're coming in 2-3 times a week. They're not only moving every week, but they're getting an education along the way. And that's the pathway of the future for me.
Awesome. One last question. What technology, like what things have you new research, the research I think but technologies, we see things with like virtual reality, augmented reality, or other things. Like what, is there anything on the technology side that has you excited that people should know about?
Yes. I'll only take a minute.
Okay.
First of all, I already talked about insoles. I talked about this. I have a foundation. I have to say for 1 second, if anyone's interested in supporting any research we want to do Nabosa research, hypersphere research, and postural taping with rock tape, because the postural taping is such a great way to help as a reminder of sensory input to the brain to stand up straighter. What I really, really like is some of the augmented reality, virtual reality. And my son, who's also a computer guru, basically, he's down in Atlanta. He's a doctor in Atlanta, but we are, I can't promote it yet, so it's not like I'm trying to sell anything. Well, you'll know when it's out, because I'll tell you. But it does have to do with a virtual reality, eventually augmented reality, because then you get, you know, if you have goggles on and there's a camera that helps you see your surroundings, and you're moving around in your real surroundings. But then the lens brings in like balloons, let's say, and your job is to pop all the balloons. So you get visual and vestibular going. You get hand-eye coordination while you're moving in a safe environment. And maybe you're doing it on, I can't remember this thing. I saw it in London last year, and I'm going to buy one soon. It's like a wobble board, but it's hooked into a computer, so you can control the cursor with your balance. When you combine a lot of this stuff, as long as it's safe for the person, maybe you'd be right next to them in case you don't want them to fall. That anytime you can do like this virtual reality, augmented reality is totally, it's like the best stuff in the world, I think. Even the old Wii, the Wii games. Yeah. I mean, some of that stuff is really cool. You don't need goggles for it, but just being interactive like that is so good for people. Visual, vestibular, hand-eye, and movement.
Absolutely. All right. Tell us really quick. I have it on here, but we can get your website where people can find you.
Okay. So if you go to Parkinson'sRegenerationTraining.com, you can find our live workshops. You'll find recommended reading lists, and there's a lot more books on there than I showed you here. You can email me from there.
Okay.
You can sign up for a live workshop. All workshop revenue in our online course comes out next month. All revenue goes to the next one, which is my foundation.
Okay.
My income comes from other areas, so all workshop and all online goes to fund research. So Parkinson'sGlobalProject.org is 501c3 nonprofit, and we're about $6,000 away from our first study, University of Toronto with Naboso.
Awesome.
Dr. Alonso Fasano. Then my membership site, Physio Chains, education.com, $15 a month. You can sign up. If you don't like it, stop. You will spend $15, but usually people like it, and we upload stuff every week to. As I learn, I keep uploading. There's so much to share.
What I like is that you're sharing. And I appreciate, one, your passion for solving, I mean, just for helping, right? If we can get even the people who produce the VR and the technology and the AR and all these wonderful things that work across, they're marketed towards sports and things, we can start thinking about helping with Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and all kinds of wonderful things. Then we start changing the world. So I appreciate your passion for this in a big way. And thank you so much for joining us, for sure.
And then there's the
Global Project. There you go. And
so
that's just cool.
If you make a donation of $30 more, you get a t-shirt or a copy of the CD that's coming out in June that I'm recording right now, which is music for people with Parkinson's, picked by people with Parkinson's with a positive message. It's all upbeat songs, all positive message stuff.
Awesome.
So we're psyched about that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's your passion for music combined with your passion for Parkinson's. Like that. That's when it gets fun, right?
Yeah, it's really cool because just 10 seconds. A friend of mine who produced my last CD in 2010, he called me up last year. He lives in LA. He says, I got a guitar player friend of mine who has Parkinson's. Can you please help him? I said, sure, let's do Skype. Well, I've been following this guy for I have the CDs right up here. You can't see them. I have 10 of his CDs. I've been following him for 25 years. Now I work with him. Now we actually are doing a recording together with these amazing musicians who have played with all kinds of bands you've all heard of. And so it's the idea that proceeds from that go to research, and we want to put something out with a positive message. So this is like my old life, music,
the new life,
but it's music with a purpose, a different kind of purpose. It's awareness and positivity.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us, for sure.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate it. Lots of good information. We'll put together a nice blog post that really captures these, and then I'll send that your way. And I really appreciate it. And I'll keep you posted when we get this research going.
Thank you.
All right.
Very much.
Have a great day.
You too. Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.